outside is different than looking from the inside out. I know it may seem from where you stand that you know all that's right for me, but you'll never see the way I do. You'll never see through my eyes. That view belongs to me. I know where I am. I know where I'm going. It may seem like I don't know right now, but my answers lie within. Looking in from the outside is different than looking from the inside out. I know it may seem from where I stand that I know all that's right for you, but I'll never see the way you do. I'll never see through your eyes. That view belongs to you. You know where you are. You know where you're going. It may seem like you don't know right now, but your answers lie within. We know where we are. We know where we're going. It may seem like we don't know right now, because we're focused on the outside, passing blame to God and the human race is only leading us to where we've been before. Time again we can ask ourselves how to make a change in this world. We don't need to look so far. We don't need to look so far. We don't need to look so far, because our answers lie within.
Welcome to American Zarathustra. This is the Imperium Art episode 25. We are very, very pleased to have a special guest from the United Kingdom, a new voice on the white positive cultural scene, and an absolute ray of sunshine. Singer-songwriter, healer, Jody Kay. How are you today, Jody?
I'm very, very well, thank you. I'm pleased and honored to be here with the both of you. Thank you for inviting me. Yes, I'm very well.
Oh, marvelous. Okay, so I'd also like to welcome my co-host and friend, the host of Conversations with the Wind, Poetry Cast on the White Art Collective, Gaius Nullus. How are you, sir?
Hello, how are you, Donald? Hello, Jody, and hello to the audience.
Hi, Nullus. Lovely to meet you as well.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Just very much looking forward to chatting with you today. It's going to be fun. So before we start, though, I would like to begin with, trying to reach out to more people across the pond and in the whole white diaspora across the world. That's one of our missions here with Imperium Art, to make this project broader than just the North American audience. So we're bringing in new voices, and as such, I'd like to paraphrase Jason Kuna, No White Guilt, on a show that he had Jody. Jody was on this show, and so this is a sort of a quote from him that I'm paraphrasing. He says, "We are a global people. The white people that are going to survive are going to be the ones that realize that. We are a single nation with many countries. So wherever we suffer, that is our suffering. Whatever country it is, whatever place it is on this entire planet. Those brothers and sisters who have gone free will determine our identity by way of our biospirit, not by way of these lines on a map, lines we draw with the differences in cuisine or accent or language. We as Western kind like this kind of variety, and we want to expand on it. White people just naturally want to be around more variety in our cultures. We would love nothing more than to go to a town center or boulevard where every other restaurant is a different European food, clothing, music, etc. So that's our future if we really use the opportunity to help people go free from white guilt. We are a single people, and that's why it matters to people in the UK or Germany or elsewhere." So with that, I'd like to ask our first question to you, Jody. If you could just please give the audience a brief description of yourself, what you do, and tell us how you came into the white positive sphere.
Wow, gosh. As you said, I am a singer, songwriter, musician. I play a multitude of instruments. In chronological order, I learnt the keyboard and the piano when I was young, the guitar at 7, then the flute, then the saxophone, then the bass guitar. And then when I was at college studying music, I discovered music therapy, and it blew me away. I was like, wow, you can actually use music directed as a therapy, and it was amazing. But I wasn't, and I'm not an academic. So at the age of, I just got through secondary school. It was or high school, I think it is in America, and I stuck with it. Then I thought I'd go to college, but the thought of being in education for another 10 years was, I just couldn't bear it. So I tried college to do music, and then my brother, who's been a bit like my guardian angel, he came across a course in sound therapy. And I was like, what? So you're taking music down to the essence, which is just sound, and you're using directed sound. So I'm combining music and songwriting with sound therapy. And 10 years ago, in 2010, I left the UK. Because of a broken heart, I went on to actually visit my brother in Spain, a tiny island called Ibiza. And I was going to be there for 3 months. I think I was staying for 3 months. And then 10 years later, I was still there. So the way I came into this was I met a friend, a very, very dear friend of mine. His name is Von Hash. I met him shortly after I'd been to the island. And he actually... I ended up homeless with a cat and her 4 kittens, and I stepped in a car park one night because I didn't have anywhere to go, and he took me into his home, and a music relationship blossomed, and the music we created was incredible. Within not so long, we'd had a song on Russia Today on their program. Max Kaiser played one of the tunes. So then we progressed, and so from that, he's been kind of teaching me in the ways of the world, because I've been very apolitical forever. So he was teaching me, and he opened my eyes to, I guess if I say the JQ, that has...
that'll work.
So he opened my eyes to that. So little by little, I started reading more and learning, self-learning. So, I was very guided. And the thing that actually got me into this sphere, the white positive sphere, was the death of George Floyd. And I know that's woken a lot of people up, but the reason being, Mark Collette from Patriotic Alternative, he had, following the death of George Floyd, he released a video talking about the facts and the fact that George was high on fentanyl. Is that what he was?
Fentanyl, I believe.
Fentanyl. And so I learnt a lot from that, and then I looked at the autopsy reports, and I was in a group, like a therapy Telegram group, and everyone jumped on and said, this is police brutality, this is the racism, this is this. And I knew I had to speak up and tell the truth. I can't remember how many people were in that group.
Right.
But the fear in my stomach, I felt physically sick at the fact that I have to now say something that's going to counter everything you're saying. And I knew I had to do it. It was literally like God was saying, you say this now. So I did, and I knew I was jumping into the lion's den. And it was exactly jumping into the lion's den. And the comments I had back were, like, people were really shocked, especially me. I'm the...
Yeah.
I get on with everyone. And so that then spiraled. A friend of mine was in the group who is of mixed race. He was a dear friend of mine. We weren't the sort of friends that we would go and meet up very often, but every time we saw each other, our embraces they were so deep. And it's like we had this connection. And me and him took the discussion in a private chat. And I said, okay, you are of mixed race. Let's talk from your perspective because he identified as black. Let's talk from your perspective as a black male, and I'll share my perspective as a white female. And to me, it was unity because, again, he was very much into yoga and everything like me as well. And I thought this could be beautiful, the way like the energies could combine, male, female, black, white, the opposites. And we were doing so well. And I was listening to his traumas, he was listening to mine. And I thought, if we do this, this could be so amazing and have such an impact on my race, his race, the human race.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it got, because I've been new to politics, I mentioned the demographic changes in the UK, and how that would affect the UK. And then he started coming up with, well, this is your karma. What happens in the UK is your karma because of your colonization. And so it got I could feel it getting even more intense and deep. And I thought, right, let's not do this over message. I'm coming to you. So I went and I wanted to discuss this face to face. And I sat with him, and he spoke about intersectionality. I don't know if this is something you're familiar with.
Well, yeah, of course, yeah.
I wasn't.
Yeah.
So I did a bit of research, and I looked, and on the top half it says underneath is the oppressed, and on the top half of the scale were the privileged. Yeah. And I said to him, well, if the underneath is the oppressed, then surely above are the oppressors. And he said, no, it's not the oppressors, it's just the privileged. And so then we got on, and in the space of about an hour, I was so attacked. He wasn't meaning to.
Yeah.
He was talking to me as if he was telling me that the sky's blue and the sun's yellow and what he'd have for his dinner. He was just saying, well, I've traveled the world, and you are the most despised people around the world. You're the most hated for your colonization. You have this superior complex. And I said, what?
Yeah,
what are you talking about?
Right.
And he brought up slavery, and I said, well, do you want to talk about who was behind slavery and who funded slavery? Do you want to talk about the Africans that were involved in the slave trade?
Yeah, and the Jews.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
who essentially set it up. They were 80% of the slave owners. It's all part of the whole narrative of destroying whites. But go
Yeah.
on.
And he said, well, it's, oh, that you're saying this is your white privilege coming through. I was like, what? And I had all the words. I had white privilege. I had white supremacy. Then I said, this isn't, and he said, this is your white fragility. So it's literally everything he was throwing at me. And I just, because of my JQ awareness, my training, let's say my JQ training,
Good.
it wasn't him speaking to me. He was just regurgitating the
Yeah.
enemy's arguments. And because of my JQ awareness, I was like, this is massive.
Wow.
And then we was talking about, he was talking about people, the blacks and the non-whites claiming back the land of England and Britain and Europe. And I was like, claiming back because yeah.
Oh my God.
And I said, well, if we're talking about land, because he said to me he had not long ago travelled to Israel. And I said, well, if you want to talk about the occupation of land, let's talk about Israel. And he said, I don't want to talk about that. I was like, oh, really? Why not?
Uh-huh.
Why don't you want to talk about that? Because he said, oh, I suppose you're going to tell me about Jewish influence in America. I said, and I acted quite ignorant and naive. I said, well, what are you talking about, Jewish power in America? And he's like, they all told me when I was in Israel. They said, well, everyone knows we own Trump and everyone knows this. I was like, who told you this? And he said, the people living in Israel. I said, so let's talk about the occupation of, and he said, I don't want to talk. And he wouldn't. As soon as I got to that point,
Fascinating.
conversation over.
It's like his kryptonite or something, right?
But after that, this is where it got interesting, because after that I actually phoned my friend Vaughn and we went for coffee. I was broken. One, because he was my friend, but it was literally like, people talk about the red pill. It was literally like I was falling down this rabbit hole, and then like 10 minutes later I'd have another awareness, and 10 minutes later something else would make sense.
Yeah.
And I was broken. I was crying. I was sobbing. I was shaking. I felt weak. I was traumatized.
Yes. Yeah. It's a mental attack.
It was so intense. And then that night, I woke up about maybe 4 or 5 in the morning, having a panic attack. I couldn't breathe. I was convulsing, and I went into his view of us, and I said, how could I have been so blind my whole life? How could I have been so stupid to have listened to Mark Collette? How could I have not known I'm the evil one? And I felt like a demon in my own skin. And I thought, I have no right to live. That's how I felt. I don't deserve. I'm part of the evil one, and how have I never seen it?
There's a term for that. I don't know, some kind of syndrome. It's Stockholm syndrome, where you identify with the person who's abusing you to somehow, I don't know, get out of it. It's disturbing.
So after that, it was a huge process for me, because, and I said to my friend, I said, look, I've never seen race. And he said, well, this is your privilege. He said, I see it every day. I said, well, I've never seen it. And he said, that's because you have the privilege not to. And I was like, but what?
Yeah.
You're just, I never would have referred to him as my black friend. You're just my friend. Mm-hmm. And I was colorblind. And I was colorblind to other people's, and I was colorblind to my own. And I'd already been in contact with Mark through email.
Yeah.
From another project, and just randomly we must have been talking, and he emailed me and he said, how are you? And I thought, I can't burden this on him, but I have to talk to him about this.
Sure. We all should talk to each other about this.
And I said, well, I'm not really that okay. And I left it there. And then he said, do you want to talk about it? Now, that man is a busy man. I don't know how many emails, but I did. And
a great man, a very great man too.
He honestly, I reeled off this email to him, and he got me through, because he made me. I guess this email, and this is what Jason talks about as well. he got me through one of the most difficult times in my life, but he just made me aware that what I was going through is quite common for us when we have this awareness brought to our attention. I mean, mine was quite a slap in the face wake up, but that's coinciding with my life. That's how I generally, I don't do things small or by half. So I think my wake up needed to be him. It needed to be of a person of color. But listening to Mark and then opening up to this community and like, oh my gosh, there you all are. Hello. So that was my journey into where I am now.
Intense, very intense. Nullus, do you have any thoughts on this?
Well, the most poignant thought that comes to mind is the sense of loneliness somebody can experience when they awaken, so to speak, and when they realize what is around them. I would say that some of us are fortunate to have had the kind of upbringing that gave us a more solid foundation in this kind of topic. Others are not that fortunate. I would say most people are not fortunate. And adding to that, you have the education at the university level, but also in your social circles of where everyone is trying to prove some kind of false moralization by upping the other, so to speak, to say that they are more virtuous than the next person. And so this spirals into this absolute fake moralization that becomes, what's the word that we use? Pathological. Yeah. And so we encounter these situations, and then when you awaken, then you question your own morality. You question your own existence. You question everything that you've been taught, everything that you've read in school, everything that you see on the internet or on TV or in your social circles. And I think the most difficult part of it is the social circles. So the people that you know and love. And when you try to be honest with them about certain things, then you encounter some very, maybe I'll rephrase that. Then it's it's a rude awakening. I think that's the word I'm really looking for, or the term. So what you have is an utter sense of loneliness, and that can be extremely overwhelming for anyone. So the community itself is really what helps people cope with various forms of pressure from, whether it's external pressure, whether it's emotional pressure, or it's a spiritual question that someone has to answer. So there's a lot of things going on here. So Jody, your journey is quite fascinating on one level. It's quite sad on another level, and I mean this, with an open heart, because it's emblematic of the way a lot of people today have to contend with when they look in the mirror. They have to ask themselves, who am I, and where do I go from here? So that's very brave of you to have went through this journey, and you're still on this journey. I mean, I'm sure that it's not over. It's far from over. We all have our many questions that you have to ask, because again, once you open this Pandora's box, even more questions arise. And so it's this almost never-ending quest to reconnect yourself with that continuity that we constantly speak of on Imperium art. And that continuity is there to give us strength. And so hopefully over the course of this conversation, we'll be able to have that discussion where we can reconnect dots, and hopefully that'll also be a part of your journey.
Mm-hmm. If I can also tag on to the back of that, intersectionality is really psychological warfare on whites. And, we're not going to make the show about that, but I do want to quickly comment that Trump banned critical race theory in America, and that gives us in America a legal ground on which to fight it in the workplace and universities, etc. So maybe that could be something to look into, and something to spread that information in the UK. So just as a strategy, but there's a few kind of bird's eye viewpoints that I want to make. For starters, you're sharing this story is going to help somebody else and many other people who watch this video. So oddly, in some strange way, it's like when life gives you lemons, you make lemonade. You know, you take these bad experiences, someone else can say, my God, I had that same feeling and I was so confused, and who do I reach out to, et cetera, et cetera. And having that Stockholm syndrome is some kind of psychological way to cope with this insanity. But there's something broader that I want to bring up, and this might become a new dialectic for us in the dissident right, the concept of white, I don't know how to say it, it's a kind of naivete, white naivete. We aren't prepared for this battle, this psychological warfare. We live in the world of logic and reason and science. And morality, in such that, you know, like you say, I don't see color, I have race blindness. Well, it's like high trust societies work fine as long as they're isolated and everyone in the society is the same. But we're just sheep among the wolves if we're living in diverse societies. So people of color, I find, always choose race over ideology. They always, and I don't know why exactly. I don't know if I want to know why, but that's just the general reality that we seem to face. There of course are people of color who are, like, say, you know, pro-America, and we have that family. I've worked on this. I've been working on this idea of a Western alliance where people of color and biracial people can be our allies in the white identity political sphere. We should never dismiss our allies. There's something in the news in America where Asians are no longer considered people of color, according to the news. You know, the news dictates reality in America. And yeah, in this surreal world we're living in. And so, you know, that lumps them in with us. But what is it about? It's kind of more about IQ. But also, a lot of Asian cultures are extremely conservative. They work hard. They're all about family structure. We have DNA differences with other types of people of color. It's just a fact. So if we want to be scientific and realistic and base compassion off of science and knowing these truths, we have to know about the bell curve. We have to understand our place in the broader picture and not have white naivete. So and I had it, and we all have it. It's a kind of a thing. Half of it is just we mean well. We don't want harm on people of color. It never, ever was that. Meanwhile, you know, intersectionality, it's entirely this faux philosophy or ideology that we are, you know, born to hurt people of color and colonize, yada, yada, yada. So it's all a mess, but I guess I just feel like, you know, your journey is going to be a fantastic model for other people. Your strength and your joy. I mean, you don't come into the white positive sphere with all kinds of anger, and you bring joy and love and healing and music. And this is a ray of sunshine, like I said at the beginning of the show. So we're really, really happy to have you on here and to feature you. So I wanted to discuss a little bit about your travels in the East and your sound therapy work. You're studying yoga. I think you lived in India for a little while. Our viewers know that I lived in Asia for 5 years, studied Buddhism for decades, and Qigong, Kung Fu, all these kinds of things. And that only made me more aware of my Western identity and all that. So I feel that it's a benefit to me as someone in the white positive sphere. Could you speak to any of that?
Absolutely, absolutely. Before I do, I just want to touch on something that Nullus said about when you come into this, and it's like you have to then find, I think you've both touched on this, find your identity, like, who am I now? The only way I could describe what happened to me was as if the whole roots of my being were torn up. It's the only way I can describe it. Like my foundations, my knowledge, my history was just, everything was just literally pulled out of the air and left hanging. So now I feel like I'm earthing and grounding again with place. And for anyone going through this, it can be tough, but this community is so opening and vast and warm. So there are many people that can help get you through this, like they did to me. So yeah, like I said, I'm a woman, so I have that nurturing anyway. If there are differences between races, there are visible differences between men and women, and I think we have to keep this in reality.
Yeah, of course.
With everything that's going on. So again, women can nurture life within them. So I think in that respect, we are the more sensitive, empathic, intuitive. We have that femininity to us. Men have this, but it's our nature. It's our nature. So I've always been a carer. My nature is to care.
Mm-hmm.
My parents used to say when I was even 3 in preschool, it's like I would be drawn to those that needed love, even though I didn't know that as a 3-year-old. But obviously the adults knew their home situations or something. I didn't. I must have just sensed, and I just hold their hands, or I just walk around with them. And the boys that used to live near me, and they really sweared and had a foul mouth. And my mum just used to say to me, they'd come in our house, and I'd say, it's not really nice to swear. And they would never swear around me or my family. So, I love and I care. So that's why music therapy just sung so much to me, that you could use the power of music to help and to heal. But as I said, the academia side was not where I was back then. Mm-hmm. So I discovered sound therapy, and whoa, my goodness, it was like, it took my intuition and even opened that. Like people talk about the third eye awakening. It became more grounded and more tangible. And I had, again, somewhere to direct my thoughts and my feelings with this knowledge I was given. So it was an East meets West, old meets new. Science meets religion. It was like a combination of everything. And it's powerful stuff. Everything around us is sound. We are constantly surrounded. It's the sound from the refrigerator, the humming from, it's all around us. Yeah. And it's so powerful, and it has a frequency, the hertz. And I studied sound therapy, and from there, like an add-on was mantra therapy. Mm-hmm. And I'd never really heard of mantra or studied mantra or practiced mantra. But when I was on the modules for the mantra therapy, we were chanting, I think it was the Ganesha mantra. Mm-hmm. And it was literally like someone had put a key into my heart and turned it into place. That's the only way I can describe it. And I knew at that moment, what I just learnt with sound therapy was something I was able to share with other people for clients. Mantra therapy for me was my medicine. Mm-hmm. That's how it felt. Mm-hmm. Then I think a couple of months after that, I flew to Colombia with a church group, and I went into this, I guess it was a bit of a spiritual crisis, because I was with this, I was with a church group, mm-hmm. and I've just done this mantra therapy, and I wasn't really too sure if I was allowed to do both. And I felt, am I cheating by bringing this in? And I spoke to my dad, and I just said, look, I'm in this bit of I don't know what to do now. Do I have to close this door and have this door, or can they come both? And it was and he just said, just speak to God. So I did, and it led me, and it was actually because of mantra that I went to India to study. It's a type of yoga called Nada yoga. So it's the yoga of sound, which again was like, oh, there we are, another. It's all related to sound. And Nada yoga is work. Yes, it has mantra in it, but it's working with our internal sound. I don't know if you've ever been to a concert like a loud
Yeah.
event. When
Many.
you come home and you're lying in bed and you've got that inner ringing in your head, it's not tinnitus, it's just there's this sound. Well, the practice of Nada yoga is about focusing on that sound. And when you've not been out and you've not had your ears bombarded with loud music, it's so subtle, but you can hear it. And it's about focusing on that through the day. And it's mantra, and it's asana, and it's hatha, and it's pranayama. So it's all of it. But being in India was such a cultural difference.
Oh, yeah.
One, because they, and I read this in a book as well, their expression of their faith and their religion is everywhere.
Yeah.
Everywhere
Right.
is a statue. I went to the most amazing temple at the top of it. We had to cross a little river. We had to climb up, and this amazing little temple. So their worship is so part of their day. It's so part of their being. And I think that's what I was like, wow. And in the book I was reading, it said in the West, we don't have that same external sense of our faith. Yes, we've got cathedrals, but now look what's happening with the churches in cathedrals in France and in the West. They're being destroyed. And
Even
it
the
was...
institution of religion is being destroyed from within with the pedophiles in the church and all this garbage. But I don't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
No. So that, but one thing I remember thinking about is in India is it looked unfinished. That's the only, like buildings, literally, and then half a building isn't there. It's not been knocked down by a tank or a bomb. It's just they just didn't finish it. And then I looked over there, and that hadn't been finished. And it just had this sense of it's not been finished yet.
Okay.
And also what I picked up was their sense, and this is now part of my awareness that I've got now. They live so, from my perspective, they live so much in the present. They're aware of the past, they're aware of the future, but it's so much the here and the now. Whereas I think our culture and others have like this long-term vision, which is needed as well. And I think maybe that's why they just stopped building their house, because, well, I'm okay now. I'm comfortable right now. Why would I move out of where I am feeling right now to finish my house?
Okay.
Because right now I feel okay. So that's the kind of feeling I got from being in India.
Did it punctuate your experience as a Westerner in some way?
I wasn't aware of it, but now you've just asked me. It was the first time in my life I've been a minority.
Very much, yeah.
And I was aware
Yeah.
of people looking at me. I was aware that when I walked down the bazaar, it was like, I mean, where I was, there were quite a lot of Westerners there anyway, but still, it was the first time I actually was a minority. And I felt that so much, and I was very aware. I mean, they were very welcoming. And funny enough, my friend who gave me my red pill slapped around the face, as a mixed race person, he said to me he had never felt more at home than when he was either in India or another country where people looked like him.
See, that whole issue about, being around people who look like you, I'm not going to belittle it or deny it or something, but at the same time, for whites, I think when we're together in our cultures, I don't know, I don't mean to be callous, but in a sense, that isn't the thing that brings us together. We have something in our roots, in our DNA, in our civilization, in our goals, in our future vision that permeates our cultures, our arts, religion, all these aspects. So just having, oh boy, I need someone who looks like me to feel comfortable. It's very shallow to me. Again, I'm not trying to be callous, but I feel like this is probably an IQ difference. That's just a thought. Nullus, do you have any response to this?
Yeah, there's actually a few things. I mean, this is actually a fascinating topic and a wonderful story. So what I'd like to just add to this is that this is one of the reasons why we're trying to figure out what we want to achieve with Imperium Art. One of the main topics, which I mentioned before, was reconnecting the severed threads of our continuity. And what I mean by that, in many respects, is not just the artistic expressions, the ideological, philosophical schools or what have you, but also the traditions that are connected to our spirit and the way we relate to the divine. And so if you look at it, from Eurasia to the Norwegian fjords, pagan chants, drum beats, repetitive beats, Gregorian chants in the Catholic faith, choir singing even, they've all been an integral part of our organic heritage. It's something that connected us to the divine. It gave us an opportunity to celebrate our identity, to celebrate our faith, our family, our nations. And this is what postmodernism subjugated. This is what is that severed connection that I think is most important, is our connection to our spirituality. Because this part here is what we need to celebrate unapologetically. So I think that it's fascinating that you mentioned that. And the other point I think that you brought up, which I find equally fascinating, is this concept of the long-term vision. So we have to think multi-generationally. We have to say that we're going to build, in our generation, we'll build the foundations. The next generation will build the first floor, and so on and so forth, until the cathedral is built. But we all know that the next generation is going to continue our work. And that's important, and that's something that we have to make ours again. Because I think that what we have today is how should I put this? We have lost that long-term vision. We're thinking everything right now is very short-term, 5 minutes. It's a tweet. It's a commercial. Yeah. It's a TV series that when the TV series is over, then you're longing for the next best thing. So there's no long-term vision. It's almost like they tore the soul out of the European man through that.
Which I think, I don't know if any of you have read, I think his name's Julius Evola.
Yes. Yeah.
I tried talking about the IQ. I tried, so I haven't got too far. But there was a book he did about yoga, and I think it was Shakti or Kali. I can't remember. For me personally, and especially where I was living, where I was living, it's very much, and things can easily get. I can't remember if one of you have just used the word hijacked. Okay. Like for me, for example, this lovely, caring, soft, loving woman, I think entering into the world of spirituality and healing, especially a lot of my friends that are in that realm, it's a very left-leaning place. Of course. The amount of times I've heard people say, well, there is no such thing as truth, because it's like this practice of, like you were talking about just now, with this connection to the divine, connection to our spirits, the spirit of our people. That has been hijacked. When you go there, just love, everything's okay. There's only one race, it's the human race, which I get as well. We are a human race. We are all on this planet together. Race, creed, whatever. We are all on this earth together. But especially when I was going through this intense part of my my awakening. My friend who was a yoga teacher just kept saying, just go into your heart space, just breathe. And I said, can you imagine how insulting it would have been had someone said to those slaves on the ships, just come into your heart space.
Right.
Just breathe. And can you imagine?
Yeah.
Like, no. And so I was trying to just project that back at him. And I said, there's a time for that. There is a time to be still in meditation. There is a time to be with prayer. But there is a time for action as well. Mm-hmm. If I sit here in prayer and the train's coming, I can't meditate the train around me yet.
Right.
haven't got, but it's either going to come, or I die in the zone, or I take action, I get off the track.
Right.
So it's a very, I don't want to say dangerous because that's too strong a word, but it can catch people to steer people off track, I think.
I'd like to respond to some of your earlier points. There's a lot of great stuff that we're talking about here, and I don't want to let it all slip under the radar here. So to go back a little bit to music therapy, I'm an art teacher and artist, and I've been trained in art therapy as well. And I actually use art therapy on my job currently. So yeah, I completely am plugged into what you do on that. Anyway, something that fascinates me about this is you were talking about life in India and how the culture is saturated with, I guess, religion and spirituality. It's a part of everyday life. Same thing in certain parts of like Japan, China, Taiwan, Thailand, Hong Kong, places that I've been. That you get the general idea. I think most people do. So I guess what we're trying to do is create a future vision of the Imperium, of a kind of a Western paradise. And so I'm trying to envision and even suggest to people listening to the show about envisioning architecture and culture where we are saturated with our spirituality, and we have, this is around us, that we're not a strictly capitalist culture where we're being torn apart, or, our soul is being torn out, as Nullus said, and that we have that continuity with the ancient past and our people. So I feel like this is one of those major deficits that we have in the white positive sphere, is that we have to start planning how to build that world. And then also, since you mentioned mantra therapy, as a former Buddhist, you're never a former Buddhist, but as someone who's practiced Buddhism for 20 years, I went very deeply into mantra, and I have benefited tremendously from it. I understand it, but I also feel that there could be Christian mantras, or other types of mantras, even simple daily non-religious mantras you might want to say, that will program your mind in a way. Now, granted, you and I know that in Vedic traditions and in Buddhism, etc., there's actually power in these words. There's something far beyond our kind of, it's something supernatural, and it's hard to explain to Westerners. You just have to experience it from a good teacher. However, I guess what I'm asking you is, could you create a Western kind mantra? And yeah, that would be a good project. Wouldn't you think?
Sorry, Nullus is unmiked, so I don't want to interrupt if Nullus wants to add. So I'll keep that question in my mind.
I just want to add that we have all of this. This is my whole point with the Imperium art from my perspective.
Yeah.
Now, I have the utmost respect for other religions, for other non-European traditions, cultures. There's a time and a place for everything. That's not the issue. But for us, we have it all. We have it in our chants. We have it in our prayers. We have it in our songs. We have it in our consciousness. We have it just from a Catholic perspective. The rosary has that kind of a magical meaning to the people who pray it. There's a repetitiveness,
Well
there's
done.
a power to it.
Yeah.
And what I really want to say with all of this, and Jody mentioned, and I'm sorry that I'm just running on a tangent here, but
Okay.
but you mentioned that there's a time and a place for everything. And if you read in Ecclesiastes chapter 3, he says this specifically: there's a season for everything, a time for every occupation under heaven, a time for giving birth, a time for dying, a time for planting, a time for uprooting what has been planted, a time for killing, a time for healing, a time for knocking down, a time for building, and it goes on and on. And so the point I really want to make with this is whether or not one chooses to find this overarching theme in Christianity, whether one finds this in the Catholic tradition or in the Orthodox tradition or in Protestantism, or if they decide to choose a pagan tradition that's closer to their own ethnos, that's a personal decision they have to make. I can't speak for them. What I can say, and I respect all of those, and as you know, Donald, I want everyone to think like I do, but that's a different topic. I'm just joking on it.
That's all good. That's okay.
I'm kind of joking. Well, anyway.
Hey, you do you, man. It's okay.
So the point I want to make with this is that all of this belongs to us. We have it. We have it in our cathedrals. When I go into a church, if I visit a medieval cathedral, I feel that spirituality in the air. When I see the paintings, when I see all the love, and the word love is very important. We have to understand that we are always, and we had this conversation with James Fox Higgins. We had it with John before that when we talked about Christianity, but we also talked about the overarching theme that our whole premise has to start from the foundation of love. Love yourself. Love yourself in a way that's not narcissistic. Love your family. Love your nation. Love your people. Love your race. Love who you are, because once you have that, that's when you find that you understand that the biospirit has that connection to that absolute, and that absolute does not change. That's always there. It's just a question for us to connect to this absolute. It's not that the absolute will change to us. It's a question of whether we will change to the absolute. Anyway, I'm sorry about going off on a tangent.
No, beautifully done. Very good.
Not at all. All interesting points. And I feel so blessed that that spirit, that entity, that element of love, I've known that for as long as I've been conscious. I've always, I felt like I've always had this connection with God. I haven't shared this on stream before, but I think I have it on my website. I actually had quite a traumatic birth, and when I was born, my parents thought I was dead. And my mum told me that when I was about 5 or 6. And as soon as she told me that, I knew without a doubt God had kept me alive for a reason. So I have always prayed and connected and felt that spirit that you've just so eloquently described. I feel like that's part of my very essence. It's part
Beautiful.
of our very essence, but I feel blessed that I have grown up with this and been aware of this. Now, there's lots that haven't. So when I became aware, especially now with my view of the world, with my view of where we are as a people and the world, I have had this internal, I don't want to say battle or clash, but with the mantra, it's like, I want to come back to Christianity because this is my place. Mm-hmm. This is where, and I've always had this sense of Christ around me as well. So for me, practicing mantra, for me it was a spiritual practice rather than an honoring of some other religion. Now, if I was to speak to a Hindu about that, he would say, well, there is no mantra without the actual God essence of that particular God. Well, I personally believe in one God, the God, whether you can call it the God or God. That's where my beliefs, my faith lies with Christ. So I am a Christian, And so this East meets West, but I think we can, well, I have learned, and like you said, Donald, you have personally experienced the benefit of this.
Mm-hmm.
Now, to go back with what Nullus was saying, it has been hidden from us. It hasn't been hidden from the Indians or it hasn't been hidden or taken away. It's been robbed. It's been taken from us. We have lost our direction with that. And yeah, bring it back. Bring it back. And what you were saying about building now for the long term. Look at the Gaudi Cathedral in Barcelona.
Yeah.
It's still being built.
Yeah.
He designed this knowing he would never, ever see the end result. And the same with us, and with this spirit that we all three feel it right now, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
We can bring this back. So the more we plant now, and the more we come to this place of love and honor our lineage with regards to the divine and God and grace and spirituality, it will come through later generations and later generations, because that's all the mantra is, really.
Exactly.
The power was from thousands and thousands of years ago. So if you build up, it just accumulates energy. It just accumulates energy. So who's to say I can't just make up a mantra now in English, Christian, Latin, whatever, and then in 2,000 years, people are chanting that, from us.
Yeah. It just struck me that, we could use something like that that's exclusive to people of our kind that are woke on what's going on, something that would root the Imperium. But I mean, Nullus has absolutely convinced me we already have it. I always recognize the fact that, the white peoples across the world do have different opinions, religions, levels of evolution and their spirituality, etc. So I always try to think of something that can cover everyone, and like sweep us all together, even though many of us are kind of lost in modernity. But this is a really good segue into my next question. I want to talk about your music and how you write music and maybe what some of your milestones are.
Well, I was always writing songs. When I was young, if I'd walk to school and I'd see something, everything was part of a song or a poem. So I just started writing all the time, and that can come from there. And everything I saw was poetry. It was poetry. I think I started writing my actual songs when I was 11 or 12. I've got some songs that I wrote when I was. I mean, they're cheesy 11-year-old songs, but they're deep as well. It might be a bit cheesy, but the meaning is still there. So, when I said to myself, and I had this feeling that God had kept me alive for a reason, I knew it involved caring, I knew it involved helping, and I knew it involved music. Without a doubt, I knew that, because I'm blessed with the ability of music. Give me an instrument and I'll play it. It's just, that's a gift. And I was in a band, amazing years. I've spent amazing years with some very, very good friends. And when that split, I wanted to kind of bring my voice out, but there was a lot of self-esteem, because it's an ongoing joke. I am a performer. I'm a bit of a jester. I love to be, everyone look at me, everyone look at me. So I know that that's part of my character, but I didn't want to be that on stage, because it was like, is that my ego? Is that something else? And so I was very reserved. And then it was actually when I was working with my sound therapy, and it's not songs and words, it's just sounds with my voice. And someone said to me, if you don't share that, you're being extremely selfish.
Wow.
I was like,
wow.
Okay. So then I took myself out the way. It's not about me. Let that gift come through you. And as soon as I kind of got myself out of the way, it's like, okay, so now I can sing these songs and I can sing from the heart. And I know when I've written a song, and I know when a song has come to me.
Beautiful. That's beautiful. So your website, by the way, what's the title of your site so people know? We'll post it in the links below, but go ahead.
It's jodykay.com.
Okay, jodykay.com. So certainly we'll be listening to some music on the show, and the links will be below. Let's say I'm also a songwriter, and I guess the question is, where do you want your music to go? Like, let's say a year from now, what do you hope to be doing?
I feel like it's already started because I've been singing and performing for over half my life. But it's only now, since I became a known member of this community and this, so I talk about Mark Collette and, patriotic alternative and from there, but then like with the likes of you guys and James Fox Higgins and out it goes. I made a joke to my friend Vaughn. I was like, I have an audience now. I have an audience.
Marvelous.
Over half of my life, and I haven't put too much effort into it because I thought, well, it will just come naturally. And I've been. Someone asked if I would sing, so I thought, okay, I'll just do. And everyone was in lockdown, so I did an online gig where in my old house, and that's exactly why I am a performer and a singer, because the way I could reach people not only with my words but with my love, and in these dark and heavy times, if I can help to elevate and lift and just take the weight off, just for like an hour, just like, okay, you don't have to, like, we've been over to that part of the world, we've sat still, we've meditated for hours. If I can create that same sense of courage and faith and hope and togetherness, then I will not stop doing what I'm doing, because I've been welcomed so much. And that's what, in a year, I would love to be. I want a gig again. I want to be on stage. I want to perform. And I want to share my energy with my audience, and I want my audience to share their energy with me. And when you're on stage and you get into this perpetual motion of love, and you can feel it coming, and that has an effect. That has an effect that, you talk about energy and, the bubble effect, when you drop a pebble in a pond and the ripples come out. When you've got that much love and understanding and compassion and connection, that has a I'm a butterfly, so the flap of a butterfly's wings.
Nice.
It's exactly.
You exude joy and love, like, just naturally. It's marvelous. I think it's magnetic, and I believe that you're going to draw a lot of people to you. We need more light in the darkness, so we're just grateful to have you.
Well, thank you.
We had during our conversation with James Fox Higgins, he mentioned something very interesting, where he said that he wrote songs, and then some songs were inspired. Well, in his case, were inspired by God, and he felt that the songs that he wrote were not really art, but that the songs that he felt inspired to create, or that flowed through him, was the real art. How do you feel about that?
I can second that, and I won't say his name, but a famous singer seems to be very good at putting words together that rhyme, and I hear that. I was like, okay, that's well done. But when a song comes to you, James said it was inspired by God, I feel. And again, this is where that sense of meditation or prayer comes in. That stillness. It's like I feel the words come from me. They're not mine.
Right.
I know. If I had all my songs written down, I'd say, these are the ones I wrote. These are the ones the universe wanted me to sing.
Yeah, that's
And I'd be able to tell the difference.
It's
And
fascinating.
I think the people would be able to tell the difference as well.
Yeah, yeah. And just to add to what you said, that for me at least, I don't consider myself some great poet or what have you. I just I always like to say I'm just some guy in the living room who sat down and wrote some stuff. But what I really hope to achieve is to inspire at least one person who's greater than me.
Amazing.
And if I can achieve that, then I know that what I've done had some value. It's as
That's an
simple as that.
incredible thing to say, really.
It's marvelous. And I think it echoes the concept of getting yourself out of the way and letting the flow state occur. This is sort of a Western term, but in the East, you'd say some kind of non-being meditation where you know, and it's crazy, but that's kind of the point of all of this in terms of art, where art meets spirituality is where you actually remove your ego from the equation. Your ego has something to say, you know, we all have our lives and our complaints and this and that. But if you want to reach a more profound and a much broader message that people will feel intuitively, you have to let that come through you somehow. You have to have a technique even for channeling it. It's what artists struggle with. So it's very magical though when that happens. It's quite wonderful. Wonderful. So I wanted to also ask you about who are some of the people in the white positive media that have had the biggest impact on you and why?
I would have to say Mark Collette.
Yes.
I was watching him for some time. And then the White Art Collective.
Okay.
Because White Art Collective were on a stream with Mark, and sometimes, especially because I've not really been into politics, some of it, the concepts and the terms, a little bit above me. So some streams I'm there just being part of the audience and the community. But when White Art Collective came on, I was transfixed. I was like, oh my God. Wow. And I think it was Jeff that gave the email, and I emailed. He'd finished giving his email address and I was already writing the email saying, I'm listening to you right now. Yeah. I would love to be involved, please. And then it was a while and he got back to me, but we'd already made contact through one of the Telegram groups. So Mark, just being such a beacon of power, he's giving a lot of people a lot of hope and vision.
Yeah. I cannot say enough about Mark Collette.
No, me neither.
Giant, and to be in the presence of such men is so inspiring. I kind of fumble the words here, but I can't thank him enough for everything he does.
No, me neither.
Yeah.
I can't actually wait to meet him. I can't wait.
I'll bring some Red Bulls if I ever meet him, because I know that's his weakness. He likes Red Bull. So
yeah, he does. He's a great advert for it as well. He's a great advert. So Mark, the White Art Collective, Emily Yukis.
Oh, interesting. Now that's very interesting because she's really unique in her own way. She's like, wow. I mean, if anybody knows her work, let me first say that Hyrith did a interview with her on the White Art Collective, the Our Culture show, and strongly recommended. I really should put the link below. Emily Yukis is wild. You know, she's like a volcano of amazing, crazy, wonderful ideas, and she's very unfiltered. So, you know, it's going to be a bit harsh and shocking for some people, but she's just tremendous. So I'm amazed. You just seem very different in character from her. What is the connection there?
Well, you just said she's very uncensored, and her confidence to just say it as it is.
Yeah.
I was so drawn to that. I was like, wow, the power behind her. And the fact that she's a female with her face out.
Yeah.
Emily Yukis and Laura Towler are why I am here now with my face, because I thought, well, they're doing it. I'm going to do it.
That's very brave of you, by the way, especially in the UK. So my hat's off to you.
Yeah.
Well, I self-doxed when I was living abroad. With my own business and everything, trying to get my own work together. And then I was like, oh, I'm going back to the UK. Oh, I've already self-doxed.
Oh boy.
Can I have a job?
Yeah. Wow. That actually is kind of an interesting question for people like us living in the States and elsewhere. What is it like? I get the impression that, of course, it's scary. I mean, you're what challenges do you face exactly with like being out there? Do you really feel that you could go to jail or someone would assault you in the streets? Is it more on a social level where people are disapproving of what you do and waving their finger at you? What exactly are you facing?
At the moment, and I want to stay as positive as I can, nothing.
Okay.
When I was talking about my moment with the Telegram group and me jumping into the lion's den, one of my biggest fears was, and this is something I spoke with Jason about, they're going to call me a racist.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to think I'm a racist. And that, I think, has been one of the hardest things I've had to overcome, is one, knowing people will call me a racist.
Right.
I think I was called a racist 4 times and then it just didn't have any effect because I just...
Right.
That was the biggest thing. And then I thought, because I was a musician, I've had a little bit of a hedonistic past. I'm not going to deny or try and hide that. So it was this thought of, what if there's a video of me somewhere? What if I've been so gone and, in the fields of the festival or something, and this image of me comes to light, that this is who you're all supporting, look at her drunk, look at her, and I think this is, I'm going to say this, because we all have a past. We all have our previous experiences. We've all done things we aren't proud of, I'm sure. We've all said things we aren't proud of. We all, have different lifestyles to each other. That was what was stopping me from doing it, because I thought, what if they find out about this part that and I think, on a bigger scale, I think this is how politicians and certain governments get caught up, because they are filled with whatever luxury it is they want for that day, and then they're caught. Now you're ours. Now you're ours.
Right.
And I think to some degree we all have this same mark, and Jason talk about the shekels. There's like, not the shekels, the shackles.
The shackles with an A, not an E. That was awesome.
Oh, Freudian slip. The shackles
You're
around
really
us.
channeling right now. That was good.
And once you break that, it's like, okay, you don't have any power over me. I'm going to put my face out there, and I'm going to put my name.
Go free.
Go free. Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's literally how it felt. So, so that was my biggest fear.
Well, the first step to redemption is to learn how to forgive yourself. And you have to, all of us have various things that we've done in our lives that we're not as proud of. And that's just a reality. Maybe there are a few people who can say that they have less than others. That's all a nuance. I think the more important question is accepting redemption and facing ourselves and looking in the mirror and saying it's okay. Because once you have that sense of redemption, then it really doesn't matter anymore. That's, the biggest question is, I guess nowadays, and I think this is an important point to mention, because you have a lot of content creators out there who don't change. So they represent something, but they're really representing some kind of a facade. and they haven't went through that redemption arc. So I think that, but that's very obvious to people. You'll see who's honest over time. You'll find out who's honest and who's not, or dishonest. So I think that in your case, you should have no worries whatsoever. And so if a festival picture shows up somewhere, it's okay.
You were young.
I'm tempted just to do it myself and say, here's 5 years ago, however many years ago. Yeah. But I think that's so important, and I think it was my friend Vaughn that had said this, or it was from a book. It might have even been Mark. When you're swimming in poison, it's hard not to get poisoned.
Right.
And the way the TV is poisoning people, and it's and I don't know if either of you read Mark's book.
No.
The Fall of Western Man. I read that, and I was very honest with him. It was heartbreaking for me, because he talks about the plan of the enemy of the West, and how I fell victim in quite a lot of ways to the plan, and it was so painful to read Mark's book. One, to realise, because no one likes to think they can be fooled. No one, I know what's going on, it's fine. Well, when you realise that actually you have been fooled and you have been programmed, and you've fallen into this trap of hedonism or the filth that's, degeneracy.
Yeah.
So how many of our brothers and sisters are still there?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
And I know people that have been in a lot worse situations than me. And I want them to know that it's okay. It's okay. It's okay that you've been there and you've done that. What's important now is that you get out of there and stop doing that, and you try your very best now to have this better life for yourself, for your friends, for your family, for the generation to come, because we've been poisoned.
Yeah, very much.
Yeah.
I want to add a little bit to this topic, maybe more for the audience in some way, but I have a kind of a joke that I use whenever someone calls me a racist. I say, let's say if they're writing it on Facebook or something, I'll say, you spelled race realist wrong. Or you get where I'm going. And the confidence and the humor, the snarkiness of it completely deflects them, knocks them right off the tracks, because they realize this word is powerless. I can't call you a racist and then you'll bow and kiss my feet. Race realism is, and then it introduces that term to their vocabulary. And they think, oh, wow, maybe there's something here, because most people would respond, oh my God, they'll either fight you, or it's just nonsense. Do not engage, do not engage, because it's illogical, it's irrational, and it's harmful. And when you kind of play by their rules, you're bound to lose. If you're aloof and you're confident and comfortable, and we have nothing to be guilty of. So what the heck are we hiding or running?
No white guilt. No white guilt.
So anyway, you can use that. I'll give you, everyone listening, you have no copyrights on this. Go ahead. I'm a big realist.
I just want to underscore what Jody just said, and I think this is an extremely important point. We live in this age of degeneracy. We live in this age where everything immoral is permissible.
Yeah.
We live in an age where the unethical are celebrated, where the circus clowns are the ones pointing that moral finger at us. We're living in a world where you're inundated with false messages. So you have many people out there, and I believe this is definitely the case. You might have a lot of people out there that realize that something is completely wrong. They don't know how to express this. They don't understand it. They don't know how to contextualize it. They can't find themselves anymore. And then they might hear the White Art Collective. They might hear Jody. They might hear Mark Collette. They might hear us. And they might say to themselves, well, it sounds good. I like what they're saying, but I don't know if I can be a part of this because I have a lot of skeletons in my closet. I've done X, Y, and Z. I don't want, so this is where I wanted to get, where it's very important what Jody said, that we have to keep the door open. We have to understand that we live in an age where a lot of people made very bad decisions in their lives. Mm-hmm. We have to give them an opportunity to redeem themselves. And this redemption isn't something that happens overnight. It's not that, okay, now I've suddenly decided that I want to be a part of this community and I'm going to be a saint tomorrow. It doesn't work that way.
No.
The way it works is you have to find a path to first forgive yourself. You have to find a path to first acknowledge that what's going on around you is bad for your spirit, bad for your health, bad for your for the people that you love, the people around you. And you have to understand that the door is always open. And we have to walk through the fire. We have to understand that. And so we, as this community, we have to accept people into our circles. We have to understand that they're going through a process.
Yeah.
And so what we have to do through our art, I believe, and this is also, I think, maybe this is an interesting aspect of this conversation, is the healing effect of Imperium art, so to speak, where we provide through Imperium art, through the art that we're creating, we're providing this healing process for those that need it. And we're giving them an opportunity to say that it's okay. You belong to the family. It's okay. But it's okay. But it's beyond. I mean, I don't mean this to put the race aspect or the culture aspect or the ethnic aspect below, but there's also a personal aspect here. There's an individual aspect here, because think about it this way. You're a person entering a house. And when you're standing in front of that door, before you open the door to go into the house, to go into the home, to come back home, if you will, opening that door is one of the most difficult moments in somebody's life, because they look back and they see all the things that they've done and they ask themselves, am I worthy?
Yeah.
And so what you have to make sure is everyone is, yes, you are worthy. Yes, you belong, but you have to also understand that this is a difficult path. And so even if you stumble along the way, you have to understand that your path has to go towards that positive. You can't deviate from the positive. Once you commit to the path, you have to stay on track, even if you stumble along the way.
Yeah, it's because the path is truth.
Yeah.
Correct.
You cannot undo truth. Truth is always.
So we forgive everyone. Just forgive yourselves.
Yeah. I think it all has to start there too, self-love. And James Fox Higgins put it beautifully. He was saying, if God Almighty forgives me, then who am I not to forgive myself?
I know, that's so beautiful. Really.
So this has been an incredible show, Jody. We're very inspired by you. We welcome you. We love you. Thank you so much for bringing all your magic into our sphere. I guess there's just really only one question left. So your positivity is infectious. What is your secret to happiness?
My secret to happiness.
Big question.
In one word.
Okay.
God.
Okay. Well,
There you go.
and there you go. I guess that's the perfect ending to a great show. So we thank everybody for joining us for this hour and a half or so. Please do leave comments, share, subscribe. You know the drill. And please do visit her website, links below. I'll also have Jason Kuna's interview with her below. And we thank you for joining us for episode 25 of Imperium Art.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been amazing. I could go on for another 2 hours, I'm sure.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Jody.
Yeah, we'll see you next time.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Fly, little little flower, dance wild. Dance like the world is dancing with you. Dance to the music of the air. Dance to the rhythm that's in your heart. Sing, little star, sing strong. Sing like the world is singing with you. Sing for the love that's in your heart. Sing as if every word could save the world. Live, little one, live on. Live like the world is living with you. Live with a smile upon your face. Live as if every day was a miracle. Live as if every day was a miracle.